The third Hobbit film continues upright where the second one left off. The residents of Lake Town are in a frenzy as the dragon Smaug voice, Benedict Cumberbatch, descends to wreak his vengeance. The master of Lake Town, Stephen Fry, and his subordinate Alfred, Ryan Gage, attempt to flee with the town's treasure, as the rest of the residents attempt to flee as well. Smaug descends and breathes fire all over town, demolishing an entire row of houses and killing a large number of people. Meanwhile, while his children are leaving with Toriel, Evangeline Lilly, Keely, Aidan Turner, Philly, Dean O'Gorman, Beaufort, James Nesbitt, and Owen, John Callan, Bard the Bowman, Luke Evans, tries to get away from his cell. Bard's son Bane, John Bell, observes his father as he climbs the bell tower to reach high enough to shoot at Smaug from the boat. Before being apprehended in the last film, Bard instructed Bane to hide the last black arrow. Recognizing that Bard requires the arrow, Bane grabs a cargo hook, swings off of the boat, and heads to the little boat where he left it hidden. Bilbo Baggins, Martin Freeman, Dwalin, Graham McTavish, Balin, Ken Stott, Dory, Mark Hadlow, Nori, Jed Brophy, Ori, Adam Brown, Bifer, William Kircher, Gloin, Peter Hambleton, and Bomber, Stephen Hunter, watched the dragon terrorize Lake Town from atop the lonely mountain. Thorin Oakenshield, Richard Armitage, their commander, is unable to watch alongside them. As Smaug flies by, Bard fires his arrows at him, landing several direct hits, but unable to breach his scaled hide. Bane appears with the black arrow, which is powerful enough to complete the task. Smaug demolishes the bell tower, breaking Bard's bow. The dragon mocks Bard and his son as he aims the black arrow while resting it on Bane's shoulder with a makeshift bow he rigged out of his shattered one. As Smaug approaches, Bard fires the arrow. It slams into the dragon, striking a weak area in his armor. As the light exits his body, he yells in agony. Smaug falls into the lake, crushing both the master and the gold supply. The dwarves cheer when they learn that Smaug has died. Lake Town survivors gather the materials they have left. Alfred attempts to take some, but Bard stops him. The villagers regard Bard as their savior because he killed Smaug. They seize Alfred and attempt to punish him, but Bard intervenes. He decides to seek safety in the town of Dale. Keely and the other dwarves depart towards the mountain to rejoin the rest of the group, with Keely inviting Toriel to accompany them. Legolas, Orlando Bloom, intervenes, advising Toriel to bid Keely farewell. Keely delivers her the carved stone he showed her the first time they met. The dwarves return to Bilbo in the Lonely Mountain, where he informs them that Thorin has slowly begun to lose his mind after being corrupted by the mountain's hoarded treasure. He's also becoming obsessed with finding the Arkenstone. Bilbo had it all along, but obeyed Smaug's warning that the stone would drive Thorin insane. Bilbo approaches Balin and inquires about the Arkenstone without admitting possession. Balin responds that holding the stone may make Thorin even more insane. The orcs, led by Azog, Manu Bennett, are advancing towards Erebor when Bolg, John Tui, arrives to warn Azog that the elf army is closing in. Azog sends Bolg to Gundabad, an orc fortress, to gather a larger army of orcs to join them. Gandalf, Ian McKellen, is still imprisoned in Dol Guldur after learning that the necromancer, voice, Benedict Cumberbatch, is Sauron. A massive orc threatens him until Galadriel, Cate Blanchett, arrives and defeats him. The Nazgul, 9 ghost-like men who were killed by Sauron, appear to attack, but Elrond, Hugo Weaving, and Saruman, Christopher Lee, arrive to combat them. As Galadriel cares to Gandalf, the two of them destroy the Nazgul. Radagast, Sylvester McCoy, returns in his rabbit-drawn sleigh to abduct Gandalf. Sauron's apparition arrives and tries to entice Galadriel, but she overcomes him and casts him out. She succumbs to her injuries. Elrond advises that they warn everyone about Sauron, but Saruman tells them that they should help Galadriel and leave Sauron to him. Legolas and Tauriel discover that Bolg is traveling to Gundabad. They decide to follow him after learning via a messenger that Thranduil, Lee Pace, had expelled Tauriel from the Elf Kingdom. Thranduil arrives in Dale, accompanied by his army. He talks to Bard about creating an alliance because Thranduil wishes to enter the Lonely Mountain to collect the white diamonds that the dwarves refused him many years ago, including a necklace crafted of them. Legolas and Tauriel discover that Bolg is traveling to Gundabad. They decide to follow him after learning via a messenger that Thranduil, Lee Pace, had expelled Tauriel from the Elf Kingdom. Thranduil arrives in Dale, accompanied by his army. He talks to Bard about creating an alliance because Thranduil wishes to enter the Lonely Mountain to collect the white diamonds that the dwarves refused him many years ago, including a necklace crafted of them. Gandalf arrives in Dale, and Bilbo climbs out of the mountain in the middle of the night to a tent where Gandalf, Bard, and Thranduil are conversing. Bilbo hands down the Arkenstone as his portion of Thorin's wealth. Thranduil promises Gandalf that he will win this battle to defend his people. The Elvish and Lake Town armies confront Erebor the following day. Thorin and the dwarves emerge from behind the wall. Bard displays the Arkenstone in exchange for the money. Thorin believes it's a ruse until Bilbo admits he gave it to them. Thorin, feeling betrayed, orders the dwarves to hurl Bilbo over the side of the wall they built. They refuse, and Thorin comes very close to doing it himself. When Gandalf arrives to stop him, Bilbo is able to flee and join his wizard companion. Thorin growls that he will have war when Bard asks if he wants peace or conflict. Just then, a dwarven army led by Thorin's cousin Dane Ironfoot, Billy Connolly, arrives to aid Thorin and his companions. They are about to launch an attack on the elf army when the orc army arrives. The Battle of the Five Armies begins as armies of dwarves, elves, and humans band together to combat the baddies. When Legolas and Tauriel arrive in Gundabad, they see Bolg summoning the remainder of the orc army, as well as a swarm of huge bat creatures. Dwalin tries to reason with Thorin, who has grown increasingly disillusioned and angry on the mountain. Thorin threatens him with death if he does not go. Dwalin agrees, dissatisfied. Thorin enters the Gallery of Kings and walks across the hardened gold floor where he attempted to trap Smaug. He has visions of the dragon swimming beneath him and himself falling into the riches. Thorin comes to and overcomes his insanity. The dwarves blast through the wall they built across the gate into the mountain with a big bell as a wrecking ball and emerge to join the fight. While the men fight, Bard sends the women and children to safety. He presents Alfred with a weapon, but the coward is more concerned about remaining hidden and obtaining some treasure. Meanwhile, the war slaughters many innocent people. Thorin decides to ride to Ravenhill, the orcs' command post, with Dwalin, Fili, and Kili, his best warriors. Gandalf remarks and slay Azog. He understands that the loss of their leader will allow them to beat the orcs. Legolas and Tauriel also make an appearance. Thranduil discovers Tauriel leaving to assist the dwarves and warn them of Bolg's army, but Thranduil does not believe they are worth it and believes her love for Kili is not genuine. Tauriel offers Thranduil her bow and arrow, but he refuses. Legolas is in the way of her defense. They get together with Bilbo, who survived the battle with the One Ring, and set out to warn their companions. The heroes track down the orcs, but in the turmoil, Bilbo is knocked out and Fili is stabbed by Azog. Kili, enraged, rushes to the top of the tower, beheading practically every orc in his route. As Tauriel joins the fight, he approaches Bolg. Bolg dominates her and hurls her against the wall. Kili defends her, but Bolg stabs him through the heart. Tauriel stands by while he dies. In her rage, she grabs Bolg and drags him down the brink of a cliff. Legolas stands back and searches for an arrow, but he's out. He convinces a big orc to ram a tower, which collapses and makes a bridge, allowing him to dash to Tauriel's help. On the crumbling tower, he battles Bolg, expertly running over cascades of falling debris. From atop the cold falls, he notices Thorin, who is unarmed, being nearly slain by an orc, so Legolas thrusts his sword into the orc's breast. Thorin pulls the blade from the body and resumes fighting with it. Legolas pulls out his knives and thrusts one into Bolg's skull. The orc falls through the tower, which totally collapses. He falls to the ground and is crushed by a tower fragment. Radagast and Beorn, Michael Persbrand, swoop in on the great eagles as the rest of the orcs are defeated. Beorn transforms into a bear and attacks the orcs. Thorin and Azog fight on a frozen pool above the freezing falls. Azog attempts to hit Thorin with a chained boulder, only to breach the ice around him. Thorin grabs the boulder and tosses it to Azog, who sinks into the ocean. Thorin watches Azog float by, seemingly dead, beneath the ice, until the orc opens his eyes, stabs Thorin in the foot, and bursts through the ice. He pins Thorin down and attempts to impale him, but Thorin stops him. However, realizing the orc's might, Thorin lets Azog impale him until he has a clean time to kill the orc. Thorin pushes his sword through Azog's body into the ice, killing the orc. Thorin comes over to observe the rest of the action. He collapses as Bilbo approaches. Thorin apologizes to Bilbo for his actions and what he has caused him. Before he dies, he expresses gratitude for Bilbo's friendship. Bilbo weeps for his friend who has died. The remaining dwarves approach Thorin and kneel beside him. Legolas informs Thranduil that he will be departing the kingdom. Thranduil instructs his son to seek out one of the Dúnedain, a man known as Strider, Aragorn. Thranduil discovers Tauriel sobbing over Kili's body after Legolas has left. She rejects love and wonders why it is so painful. Thranduil replies, "Because it was real." Tauriel kisses Kili's lips and plans to bury him properly. Bilbo departs the mountain, instructing Balin to bid the dwarves farewell on his behalf. When he turns around, he sees them standing behind him. Bilbo appropriately bids them farewell and offers them to stop by his house if they ever find themselves in the vicinity of Bag End. Gandalf leads Bilbo back to the Shire's borders. He knows Bilbo had the ring on him, but Bilbo swears he misplaced it. Before they go, Gandalf gives him a word of caution. As Bilbo approaches Bag End, he notices someone going away with his things. His goods are being auctioned off because he was considered dead. He demands their return. While searching for evidence of his identity, he hands the auctioneer the contract he signed with Thorin's company. He enters his hole and removes the ring. The final scene depicts an adult Bilbo, Ian Holm, carrying the ring. A knock comes at the door. Bilbo swears he doesn't want visitors, but when he hears Gandalf's voice, he springs up. He approaches to the door to welcome his old buddy, and the last thing we see is Thorin's map of Erebor, thus commencing the first scene of the Lord of the Rings' second Middle-earth trilogy.